Everything is going up today, and that's because Donald Trump has made a 180 on the tariff policies. Stocks are up, crypto is up, some cryptocurrencies are up more than others. Now, there's the idea of blue chip assets, right? They're on the one hand very risky altcoins, on the other hand altcoins that are likely going to stay around for a while. In this video, we're going to talk about Aerodrome, which is the leading decentralized exchange on the Base blockchain. Here are the trending tokens on that blockchain. Aerodrome is up 26% in the last 24 hours, and it's the most liquid token. It's even more liquid than Coinbase wrapped Bitcoin. The token's price development was a roller coaster ride. First, things crashed more than 50%. Then we almost 10x'd, and now we are back to square one. Now, the nice thing about investing in crypto is that all of the data is transparent. All the transactions are publicly recorded, and so we can have a look at the usage of Aerodrome. What we've got over here is the total value locked of the protocol, and it peaked at roughly 1.8 billion, now went down to 700 million, so a drop of a bit over 50%, but some of that drop can be explained just by the general crypto market going down. So here is Aerodrome's total value locked measured in Ethereum. Yes, there is some usage decline, but it's not just capital outflows. It's simply just the assets themselves going down in value. So here's how much Aerodrome is used. Not just how much capital is on the platform, but actually how much trading activity happens. So on the top left, we've got the number of transactions. On the top right, we've got the number of traders. And at the bottom left, we've got the number of liquidity pool creations. So that's the introduction of new trading pairs on the Aerodrome platform. We can see how trading activity tends to decline in the last few months. We also see how the number of daily traders isn't anymore at the levels we saw 1 year ago. The pool creation is somewhat volatile, but also not necessarily at high levels right now. Here's similar data split by epoch and segregated by product. Again, the total value locked tends to rather decline right now, and that's due to the trading volume going down. When the trading volume and the swap fees are going down, then capital providers have less incentive to lock up their capital. Because this is how fundamentally decentralized exchanges work, right? People provide their liquidity in liquidity pools, and then traders swap back and forth. And the swapping activity generates fees that then get partially distributed to the liquidity pool providers. So the less swapping activity is happening, the less return the liquidity pool providers get. And so there's a bit of a delayed effect. As there's less trading, after a while the capital also flows out. Now, for Aerodrome, it's not that straightforward. We can't just link the price development with the usage on the platform, because on top of the usage, we've also got a staking program. And fundamentally, the idea of staking is to reduce the supply today in order to support the price, to then delay that supply in the future. Once the staking expires, then people might unstake and sell. What we've got at the top left is the number of locked Aero tokens, and we've also got the percent of the supply that's locked. Now there's two interesting points here. First of all, we see how the locked supply in percent is going down. So that means people tend to rather unstake now and sell the Aero. Secondly, we see how the supply over time is increasing. So if the demand isn't increasing as quickly as supply is, plus the unlocking, then the price should be going down. At the top right, we've got the lock growth. At the bottom left, we've got the average duration that Aero had been locked. And at the bottom right, we've got the number of holders that locked their Aero. So you can see that the number of people that believe in Aero long term isn't growing as quickly anymore. At the same time, how there's more and more of Aero that gets unlocked. Still, we've got 600,000 holders on chain. So that's directly off the token. That's not anything locked. And what we're seeing over here is the number of retail investors versus whale investors. So to be counted for the chart on the left, a wallet has to hold at least 2,500 Aero tokens. So that's roughly $1,000 worth of the token. To be counted for the chart in the middle, it's 10 times that, so $10,000. And on the right, another 10 times, so $100,000 per wallet. We can see how the growth clearly stopped in February of this year. So momentum is coming down. And so it wouldn't really be surprising to see Aerodrome underperform Bitcoin again. This is Aero relative to BTC. If the bottom in February of last year is any indication, Aero could fall by another 60%. And so I think it's wrong to just look at what's happening today. Today everything is green, but if we just zoom out a little bit more, if we look at the macro development, then the picture is very different. So this is what happened this week. The vast majority of altcoins underperformed. There's only a few altcoins that do better, but how likely is it when you've got a diversified portfolio that you're still in the green? This is the altcoin market cap. And it's coming down since December of last year. We contracted so far by 34%, and we might go down much more. In the past, we definitely did. At the same time, we see how Bitcoin tends to outperform the rest of the market. Bitcoin dominance continues to rise, and in the past, we only saw altcoin season when Bitcoin dominance was close to 70%. We are not there yet. We are only at 36%. And it might take the entire year of 2025 until we hit the 70% again. Thus, now trying to fish for bottoms of altcoins, I think is a mistake. We are not yet depressed enough. Just have a look at the last year. Here's Bitcoin's performance. So Bitcoin did actually make money, right? We went up by 18% in the last 12 months. But have a look at how many altcoins actually outperformed. Two of those altcoins are just connected to the gold price, and there are some that outperformed, but the vast majority, during a year where Bitcoin appreciated, the vast majority of altcoins just lost, and most of them lost in the double digits. I think the much better strategy is to bet on falling altcoins. And I've been talking about this since Bitcoin hit roughly 100K. Since then, the community tends to bet on falling prices, especially of very weak altcoins. Here are some trades that the community recently shared. It is possible to make money in this market, not just today, but in general. When things are going down, if we have the right altcoins to short, and if we know what kind of platforms to use and how to do proper risk management, we can still make a lot of money during times like this. I actually think it's easier to make money in a bear market than in a bull market because we don't have to identify the few winners. Most altcoins do worse than Bitcoin. Thus, we can just bet on falling prices of those alts. It's simply just a bit more advanced, right? Most people are just too scared to do it. There are all these horror stories that people get liquidated and lose everything, and there's so much market manipulation. And yes, this is all true, but all of those risks can be to a degree mitigated. If we buy altcoins that are pretty large in market size, then manipulation is harder. If we buy altcoins that have an increasing supply over time, then they tend to trend downwards. If we use leverage in a smart way and we build our portfolio slowly over time during the bear market, then we can deploy a lot of capital at the bottom. Because that's the problem most people have, right? Most people can't buy the dip once we are really low because most people just lose everything during times like this. To bridge the knowledge gap, I've created more than 100 tutorial videos on shorting, on finding the right platform, finding the right altcoin, managing the risk, doing proper risk mitigation within a portfolio, also on-chain analytics, also tokenomics, tons of different content that does help beating the market long term. Now, a lot of people already lost a lot during the beginning of this bear market, and that's why I've reduced the monthly rate from 165 to 125. There's also a 1-week money back guarantee. So in case you don't like premium, just message me within the first 7 days and I'll refund you 100%. There's really zero risk for you. It's probably a mistake to get distracted during days like this and hope for the best. It's better to face reality and see the overarching trend. In a bull market, we want to buy the dips. In a bear market, we want to short the pumps, right? We want to bet on falling prices when things tend to rise. If it's your first time here, feel free to subscribe. I publish videos regularly on YouTube. A like would be very much appreciated as well. It helps the channel grow. See you next time on YouTube or see you in premium. Cheers.